Hi everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Unmistakable. Today we have the pleasure of interviewing Micheael Vaillant and Sarah Witeneim from UAP Czech. Micheael is the founder of UAP Czech. He is a data scientist and consultant specialized in the study of unidentified aerial phenomena. He has worked more than 15 years within the French Group of Expertise and Information on Unidentified Aerial Phenomena, GEPAN, part of the French National Space Center, where he helped launch the first institutional website in the world about UAP, as well as the new official French UAP database, and created a methodology and the software to help study the unknown phenomenon. Sarah is co-founder and head of international relations of UAP Czech. She crossed the seas and oceans as a sailor for 12 years and managed an event agency in Cannes and Monaco. Exposed to the UAP phenomenon at an early age, she witnessed UAP in 2003. Since then, she has continued to investigate both in France and in other countries like Spain, Italy, United Kingdom, and Ireland. She also investigates the phenomenon of crop circles inspired by her husband, Jonnie Hurn, director of a feature film In Circles. Sarah co-organized the Echo event held in Paris in 2023. Without further ado, let's welcome our guests. Sarah Witeneim, Micheael Vaillant, thank you for being with us at Unmistakable Podcast. Very thrilled to be here with you today. And Micheael, you are the founder of UAP Czech, and of course I want to deep dive on this organization, but being gentlemen, both of us, I'd like to start with Sarah, also because we all met thanks to Sarah at the Echo event that she co-organized last year in Paris. It was really a brilliant meeting at the Sorbonne University in Paris. And so, Sarah, I'd like to start where we met. What was Echo event, and especially what happened after Echo event? What did you see in Europe after Echo event? Because probably I'm wrong, but also the UAP hearing that was at the EU Commission probably started in Paris.
All right. Well, thank you for the invitation. Thank you very much. Yes, we actually met in Echo event. We met slightly before because we actually liked the fact that you were willing to do UAP education, and it was the same idea. We were sharing the same idea. So Echo event was important to do, to democratize the subject and for our journalists, the media, to take it seriously once for all. And the fact that we managed to do it in a university like the Sorbonne was quite of a big challenge, but it was actually the things to do. And we are very glad that we could have been able to make it. And it was a real success, and it was important for in different manners. The fact that all the speakers could meet with each other as well, and could meet with the public, that was very important as well. And this is why I've met a year before, I think, Micheael, and we actually share the same idea as well. And he was telling me about his new project, which was UAP Czech, that I'm part of now today, because we share the same idea. And I think we have to keep on. We have to create new type of event, that type of event. We have to do exhibition, talk about the subject as much as we can. And it would be actually lovely that Italy or Spain, you know, keep on going that way as well. And that's why we all, you know, participate to this big topic. Yeah.
Yeah, I can assure you that, well, I was part of many UFO events many years ago. And to be frank, the one that you held in Paris is one of the best ever. And moreover, what should be important in Europe is, as you said, and as you're doing with UAP Czech, to unite the European countries where different, not only languages, but approaches not only to this topic, but also to different mindsets. And so it's very important to gather people from each EU member state to be together. So here I go to Micheael. Micheael, of course, you're a data scientist, first of all. You worked 15 years with JPAN, no? The office part of the French National Space Center, and devoted your life to study UFOs, in my opinion. And so, may you introduce our audience to JPAN, at least at the period when you were in JPAN, and what was your experience there? And then we will talk about UAP check.
Okay, thank you for also the invitation. It's great to share with you some insight or opinion about that subject. As Sarah tells us also, it is very important to be able to outreach public with serious information. And it's what I feel when I went to Echomusée also. It was a place with serious people demonstrating that it is possible to talk with a scientific state of mind about the subject. And it's why it is important to continue and to address, I think, the public, because we are always, and it is the aim of UAP check, confront to, I would say, ambiguities and about what the subject can be, and so and to answer to your question about the Japan, it is also the way the Japan address people, showing that it is a normal subject. It should be a normal subject, not a subject only for people who are outside of the reality, in a way. And in this sense, we try to show at the Japan during 15 years where I was, and that we can work on that subject with science and with objectivity, because the difficulty is to address cases and testimonies without being lost in irrational aspect. And you know, the difficulty is that also, if you ask to someone or to people around the table what they think about a UAP case, you will have almost as much as answer as people around the table.
Yeah.
And it's where it is important to put on the table methodologies to address the way we can also talk to the public and to answer to what these observations are. And it is very important. So 15 years in Japan to work on databases and methodology. It was broadly the scope of my work. And it was very exciting also because it was a place where I was connected to scientists, because to remind to the public, the Japan work with a small internal group of 4 people, but 2 also outside group, 1 group of investigator and 1 group of expert or scientists. And the investigators help the Japan to undermine if it is a known case or unknown case, if it is a known phenomena, none. And the experts are here to support the investigation and also to be sure that we do not forget anything which could be explained. Because, as you know, an investigator is someone who has a very broad vision about the reality and the phenomena. It is not someone which is very focused on one topic. So to be focused on one topic, you need to have expert or scientists. But many experts and scientists in a college form to be sure to in a way address and encompass all the realities of the phenomenon.
And that leads me to ask you something more about what you mentioned right now. I mean, you said that you were only 4 people, but you was in touch with other teams at NES, I suppose, and this happened 20 years ago. And so let's start from the stigma. Every of us now thinks and talks about the stigma that surrounds the topic. So before going on in this interesting discussion to the databases, I have several curiosities I would like to address you. Let's start. How were you perceived when you started in Japan, inside CNES? I mean, there was any stigma, or it was an open-minded, let's say, environment?
And that's a good question. I think that all changed about stigma with the first mission of the Japan when I arrived. So it was in 2006. The new Japan was just created in 2004. So with a responsible at this time, which was called Jacques Patney. And the first mission of Jacques Patney was to set up a website for the Japan. Because you know, the Japan is the continuation of a service which was called the SEPRA in the Space Center, which exists since 1987. And before that, the Japan, but without the I letter. GEIPAN. The importance of the I, it's information in the acronym, because in the new mission of the Japan, they need to publish their information, because it was criticized by both the public and the ufologists. They were saying that you have data, but you do not publish them. And by the scientists, which were saying, how can we do science without data, public available data? So a recommendation in an audit in the beginning of the 2000 years by François Louange in France was that the new Japan must focus on the communication aspect. And so, in return, it has something to do with, of course, the stigma, because if you don't communicate, if you don't outreach people, you will have many phantasms, or people will imagine a lot of things about what could be what the reality could be. On the first point, when the Japan website was put online in 2007, is that all the Space Center server crashed. Why? Because all the world tried to access to the first publication, official publication of a government of UAP archive. So it was the first time in the world. And it was a very interesting electroshock, or a realization from also the board of the Space Center, the director of the Space Center, that this subject is very important for the public, and much more important than the astronaut, because until this time, the most important aspect of the Space Center in communication was when we launch rockets and we have an astronaut going to the space. And yes, it's a good tool of communication for the Space Center. But they realize at this moment that, wow, the UAP subject is also a very important subject. And so it changed completely, I think, it's only my personal opinion, of course, the insight of the internal people in the Space Center about the subject. It was maybe not a serious subject, but in a way, serious, because if the public is interested in that subject, so there is something to understand behind. And you know, after all, you have many new responsible which succeed in the Japan. I work with 6-7 responsible, because it was people at the end of their career. So generally, they were there only 3 years, 2 years, and after they were retired. And so I observed that this director job was very asked and very in demand internally. So many people in the Space Center wants to be the director. It was not the case at for the first director, because they were very afraid. But in a way, to give you an image, it's like penguin on an iceberg. The first which go in the water will be it, perhaps. But after all, one jump, it is okay, it is clear. So the other one can jump also.
Thank you. That's a great image. And I give you a break. Micheael, I want to jump on Sarah for this topic, because you, Sarah, are basically the head of external relations in UAP Czech. And so may you add a layer to this discussion? What did you experience in communicating the ECHO event to journalists or, say, interested people before and after the event? Where was a switch in the reaction that people gave to you?
Oh, okay. So before we hired someone, a press relation who could actually contact directly, you know, all the journalists. And the fact that we had officials and scientists like Avi Loeb or, you know, Christopher Mellon, it was, they actually listened, and they took it straight away seriously. And most of them wanted private interview with with some of our speakers. Not only Chris Vaillant, but it was Philippe Guillemont, it was Micheael, Vaillant, it was Luc Dini. Almost all our speakers, it's just because they had to take it seriously, because it was actually, you know, serious people. It was not a joke. It was officials, scientists who has the resource to actually look for anomalies and try to understand it. And, you know, you and I, we don't have the resource. We don't have the technology to actually being able to analyze all these phenomena, but they do. And that's why I think it's very important to support them with this type of event, or with different interviews and everything. So the journalists welcomed it quite positively. So we didn't have so much trouble with them, even though it's a very difficult topic. As you said, it was very stigmatized, and, you know, but after the event, it wasn't so much, but I know that the speakers really liked it, and have, you know, they spread the information. The journalists have been spreading the information also after in some newspaper, which is very good. And the fact that it happened in Sorbonne too. And so now I think the next step is to go a little bit bigger, more international even. That's why I joined UAP Czech, because I think this is exactly, we need to share it with all countries, not only, you know, few countries. It's the whole world who's concerned about these topics. Yeah.
Thank you, Sarah. And this gives me the possibility to go on with Micheael about UAP Czech. In the end, Micheael, when we met, you presented me very well. What was your aim? Yeah, it's an international project to spread the topic, but tell me if I'm wrong, there is a software behind, right? So
right.
Let's introduce what a data set is, if we can. I try just to make a brief introduction here. Let's say that science needs data to advance in knowledge, to reach new hypotheses. And this is something we need to talk about, because hypothesis is what makes science advance, not only data. But that's another part of a story. But starting with data set, I worked and I studied as anthropologist, and also in anthropology it's very important to gather data, but the way you gather it, it's a social science, of course, determines the results. And sometimes when we are with hard data, some of the skeptical science people avoid to talk about the UAP topic, because they tell that data sets are not very well performed, or they were collected in different ways. And we know, I mean, who is interested in the topic, that since years there are a lot of data sets that are more or less available online or offline, but they're very different one from the other ones. And again, the skeptical scientific people says that, yeah, who knows how that data are gathered. So you as a data scientist try to bring us, to bring to the world a software. So please, can you introduce it to us, and maybe we will discuss it a little bit later.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, you did a very great resume of the problematic. It's a problematic of objectivity. And, you know, the UAP subject has no frontier, and the science as well. So when you have an observation in one country, we expect to do the same science in another country with that phenomenon, independently about where it was observed. And the problem is that the methodology depend of local people in each country. And so, for example, you may have investigators in France which conducts analysis with different results than investigators in Italy or in USA. On how we can resolve that problem, because at the end, you have different databases, different classification, and different identification. And the problem is the problem of identification at the heart of all of that. Why? Because are we able to accept that the identification made by, for example, Italian people is as good as the identification made by a group of US people, for example. And how to do that? It is only possible if we are okay to share a common methodology. And it's where I am sure, and I am trying to offer and to propose something which could be acceptable for everyone in every country, but it is important in this way to be transparent about how we process the data. And for that, a methodology is important, a transparent methodology, but also a transparent software. So to be able to share a software where we explain all the process. And it is something that it is, I observe, never done. Because we have, of course, the problem of the data by themselves, because the data are often private. Mm-hmm. But if we put on the side the problem of the data and we focus on the problem of the process of the data, it is also a problem, because nobody share really this process. And we can do something which is objective, where in this topic, by showing how we are working. And it is what I start to do in the Japan, because we have this problem inside the Japan with all the investigators. We need to train them and to ensure that their answer to the cases was the same. And at the end, we need a software to do so. To do so. And I realized also it was the same problem outside the Japan. And so my chance is that the software is in a way my property. So I decide to put in open source this software and to offer this software to the public and to other organizations. And it's where we can connect and we can discuss about the content of the software and how we process the data. Not sure I am very clear, so do not hesitate to ask questions. And Okay?
Yeah, if I may, to understand, this software will be available. Yeah, it's an open source, so let's say everybody can access to UAP check and make a check, right? Because that's the
Exactly.
promise that you do. You can check what you, let's say, observed, okay? And this is one side of the software for people to check what they,
Exactly.
for instance, what they saw, what they filmed, who knows. But I guess what happens on the other side, I mean, you are sharing the software with many organizations, and later I would like to go deeper on this topic. What are you doing in UAP check with the European organizations? But I guess that you'd like to probably to provide this software to researchers so that they can do research, right? Am I right on this point?
You are right
Or
on
is
this.
it also an interface for researchers, which is different from the interface for, let's say, people?
Exact. We want to offer this software for the other organization to be able to use this software on their own for their website. And it is very important because we do not want to centralize information at first, and also to work with scientists on the software itself, on the core of the analysis process inside the software. Because, you know, you have computing science in the software. You have calculation, for example. If you have hypothesis, the software try to assess and to measure if the hypothesis is correct or not correct. On doing so, it will check what it is called observational variable on data. So the observational variable given by the witness on the data related to the hypothesis. And for example, if you have an hypothesis which is the sun in the sky in a certain direction, and you have an observation in the sky by a witness in another direction, the software will try to compute if, for example, the difference of azimuth is potentially acceptable or not. It's what we call in science psychophysics. And we need of psychophysicists to assess and to say if it is acceptable, for example, for witness, if it is normal to have a margin error of, for example, 40 degrees.
Yeah.
And what it is acceptable or not acceptable regarding the human machine and the human recorder. And it is very important because it is where we can accept, for example, to reduce an observation to an hypothesis or not. For example, we have had a case in the Japan where witness observed a phenomenon in the sky which was 45 degrees large of what we call angular size. So you open the hand and it is very broad in the sky. But you have an hypothesis in the same direction, which was a plane, which was very teeny, only half a degree in the sky. Is it acceptable to reduce from 45 degrees to half a degree the observation? It is a question.
Yeah.
What the science said about that. So you have all these observable data. You have the elevation, the azimuth, the color, the shape of the trajectory, the angular displacements, etc., etc. You have many variables to describe a phenomenon. So for each variable, you have acceptable margin error. And it's where I would say the devil is inside the detail. It's where we need to know if it is acceptable to reduce or not reduce the things. And where every people in the world can say what they want because you have no methodology today.
Yeah.
So the point is that in the software, you, in a way, you put the knowledge of the science about how we can accept or not accept the things. On doing so, it is very systematic and very automatic also. So it is better to do that kind of verification or checking through a software and not through a human, because it is very hard and very long. And at the end, we can focus with experts and scientists on only the aspect of a given phenomenon, of the aspect of what we are not able to reduce or to understand. So, in a way, we are able to automatize and to process much more faster the cases in a way that we can explain automatically by the software 70% of the case. And you have only 30% of the cases at the end, which need to be processed by expert or investigator more precisely.
I see the point. That's great. That's basically this software seems the dream I had when I approached the topic more than 35 years ago. Let me say that when I wanted to deep dive this topic, I wrote to MUFON, and they sent me a letter, basically, in which there was the methodology that they wanted me to follow, just in case I wanted to become an inquirer, okay, in Italy. Then, there was no internet, so it was very, very difficult to do that. So I entered the CUN, Centro Ufologico Nazionale, here in Italy, and I found another methodology. Then I also did my proposal to make a new one. Anyway, the issue since the beginning to me was, okay, but what will happen when we will gather all together all the data sets that have different data points, okay, in each, let's say, country organization, there could be different data points. So the possibility that the software at some level could harmonize at least the main data points would be a really new asset to provide a reliable starting point for the human, let's say, for the human science people to go on. And here I switch to Sarah again. And Sarah, you probably have to be ready to engage many scientists now or very soon.
Yeah, exactly.
Where are we in Europe at that on that side? I mean, do you feel, apart joking, do you feel that there is, in our opinion, something is changing, also in the scientific panels? If we talk about recent, let's say, recent episodes in Europe, we are quite different than the US environment where the governmental disclosure seems to have a higher ranking than other type of disclosures. Here, to us, seems that the scientific disclosure, let's call this way, just to give a name, could be more impressive. But of course, we can very soon have a tool, let's call it tool or software, Micheal, and then we need people to work on it or not.
Well, we have no choice, actually. We do need scientists. As you can see, Micheal have created this software because it's very useful. Because, you know, now there's many people who have iPhone, you know, different phone, and they take pictures of objects in the sky or all sorts of things. But you do not have the technology to actually tell precisely what these objects are. So we do need resources. We have no choice to support the scientist, and the scientist needs to come forward more and more to help us to understand more this phenomenon.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that such a software will, when it will be brought to light, will afford us to engage more scientists, because data are there. Probably I heard you, Micheal, when you said that you don't want to centralize data sets, but I hope that could happen in some way. I mean, the different data sets, just imagine the different data sets from many private or governmental organizations coming to your software and creating a really big data asset that could be put in the middle of discussion at scientific level. That would be really great. That would be really great. I don't know if you have any expectations on this, Micheal.
Yeah, I think the slight difference between centralization and interconnection. I am rather on interconnection of databases than on centralization, because you have privacy problem with centralization. We can expect that when people observe something and give its data to an organization anywhere in the world, it's also an affair of reliability and trust with the organization. So this observer doesn't want to share this observation to someone he doesn't know. And so the organization with this data cannot share their data very easily. So you need to resolve RGPD aspect, etc., etc. But if we can interconnect at a certain level with a layer of abstraction, I will say, the database, in a way that each database remains the property of each organization, but in a way that these organizations are able to work with a common pool of web service and process, which are open source. Then I think, in a way, we will win the battle, and we will be able to have a common place to put all the knowledge of the scientists and to process in a reliable way the data of each organization, and also to connect to this web service, each organization, we need to understand what it is needed to have, in a way, at the first level of importance of data. because we have mandatory data. We cannot do an investigation if we do not have, for example, the place of observation and the time and date of observation.
Yeah.
And after that, we have also other important data. And if a database, whatever the database is, do not have this data, it is very hard to process the observation. You will have too much uncertainties on the hypothesis at the end. You cannot check, for example, if it is a satellite or a plane if you do not have the exact how.
Yeah.
So it is where we need also, with all the organization, and it's why we call UAP check in a way a kind of initiative or network, not only a new organization, but also a place to connect organization together,
Yeah.
where we can discuss about these mandatory data, about these important data to have in our relative database to be able to process this data.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much for clarifying this, because probably not many are aware of what you said, that when you share an observation with an organization, there is, especially in Europe, with many laws, that you are linked to the privacy of that person. But here we are talking about hard data, so sharing some data points of a field report could help the scientific, let's say, advancement, enhancement, protecting, let's say, the witness and the privacy of the witness itself. And we just remember to our audience that when we interviewed Professor Loeb, we know that the Galileo project is trying to gather data of every observable things in the skies, and that just imagine when you have good data sets that can talk one each other about what people said to they saw, or that they filmed, or they experienced on one side, and on the other side the same data, but transferring what is already in the sky, something which is knowable in the sky. And if you match the two of them, you have clear insights. Okay, and that's the purpose. And that's why now I would like you to talking about a more, let's say, philosophical aspect, or let's call it social aspect, which is the word disclosure. Everyone is talking about disclosure. For some, it's better to talk about confirmation. Let's call it as we want. But, well, grammatically speaking, disclosure would mean the process of communicating something, not the final answer. But it became, in the minds of many people, disclosure means the final answer. Okay. So we briefly touched that point before. And I start with Sarah again as gentleman. Sarah, what is disclosure to you? What does this word mean? UAP disclosure, of course. Yeah.
Well, disclosure, it's just to reveal actually that those phenomenons are real. We know that for decades now, many people had done investigation on these topics, and we have in our culture cinema, books, comics. We have, we can't say everyone in the whole world have heard about these topics, and yes, it's never really been taken seriously in general, but in private or in officials or army, defense, or it's been taken seriously, because once you have an object, it flies into your in your sky. It's quite, it could be a threat. So of course, for the Army of Defense, it was a serious topic. And I think, yes, the disclosure, it's important, but we have to, it's complicated because of religion, different beliefs as well. You have many people who, have beliefs in gods, and they might change, it might change their visions on their beliefs. And so we have to consider all this fact. The fact that it could be scary for some people, it could be amazing, fantastic for others, it could be very disturbing for the believers. So this all this aspect in our culture, in the social world, needs to be considered, and this is why we also need philosopher. We need people representing religion, not only scientists, but just to make us understand that it doesn't stop people to believe in what they want. It's just it could be some other life into our universe. Why not? I mean, have you seen how many millions and trillions of stars that we have in galaxies? So what would we be the only one, on Earth? And this is a real subject, and it's this is what disclosure means. It means in different aspects. Ufology, it's not really the right term to explain this subject, because it englobes, philosophy, history, science. It englobes beliefs in all sorts of topics, not only. So it's yes, it's not easy subject to talk about, and it's not easy for the investigator to find answers and to share and spread the answers, but hopefully.
Thanks, Sarah. And we recently hosted Jan Alexander, but we didn't touch with him what will be in Paris next month. I know that US UAP Czech are going to support a showcase. May you please talk to us something about that happening, because it's really linked to this way of disclosing UAP. Am I right?
Yes, absolutely. It's Jan Alexander represent Africa in a way. It's true that we do not have many sightings known about Africa, which is, it's quite a huge country, and there's many sightings that has been seen, or close encounter that we don't know of, because it's never been, going forward. And this is the occasion. And yes, Jan Alexander called us because he wanted to create an exhibition, artistic, because he's an artist himself. So to start with, he's a singer. And so he wanted to share the information, shows that in Africa, it's also an important subject. And there's not only the case of Zimbabwe, there's many different cases that we haven't heard about and the public don't know about. And it's important to share this information as well. And it's not just a matter of, France or disclosure in USA or in some big countries. It's also Africa. It's the whole world, actually. So, and I think so this exhibition will be just very, in a way, popular, open to the public, very simple, people can come and have a drink and talk about the subject and just enjoy the moment and read different stories, different hypotheses of UAP in Africa. And so it's very important to support those artists, those people who talks about this subject, because we need artists as well. It's part of the culture. We need people who come forward to represent their own country. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you. We will share any information about this this event in the comments. Okay, so
Thank you.
people can find every useful link to our discussion in the comments. And so, Micheael, to you, what is disclosure? What does it mean to you, this word?
In my opinion, disclosure is a global process. And maybe, certainly, it is not only disclosure, it's a kind of disclosure of the mind of people, I would say. Not only the military process of disclosure, as we can think about, because I think it is firmly, like Sarah said, linked to the belief of people. And behind the belief, what I call sometimes the explanatory power of the world. For me, you have three big explanatory power. You have the science power. The scientist will explain you how the world works, why we exist, etc. So one day the science will maybe explain how the life is here on Earth, and people, well, and sorry for the term, but I choose the term belief. People believe that what it is outside, in a way, for some of the science, do not exist or is not possible. For example, you cannot go from one star to another star in less time than the speed of light allow to do, because the science do not propose other solution today. So it is a power for me, and this power confront to another power, the power of religion, and where people who think that you have a God or you have entities may find their explanation behind unexplained phenomena through this power. And so you may even have people who think that UAP or UFO are devil, and so demon, or it's a possibility. It's something we have to recognize that. So it is very strange, but it is a fact. And you have another power, for example, you have the spirituality and the superhuman extraterrestrial being will come on Earth and will reveal to us the future, to humanity. So in the disclosure process, you have all this power which are struggling between them, and which are trying to find a place to coexist or to exist regarding the new information we have on the subject. And so the scientists are making progress, and I think they will do on their side their own progress to open their mind on the possibility of UAP. And it is always ongoing. You have many new concept about exoplanet, habitable zone, panspermie, etc., etc. How the life can expand in the galaxy and at which speed. And so they are working on their own, but I think you have also, at the sociological level, a process where ideas are expanding in the society through the culture, the cinema, the exhibition, etc., etc. And you have a process also on the religious side, where the Vatican, but also other religious people and religious figures must, in a way, not directly accept, but at least change their state of mind about the subject to encompass the global reality. And so, for me, the disclosure is an ongoing process which will take certainly many years. Many years. We are not at the end of the path for me, but we are not too far as well. It's a question of some years for me.
Okay, thank you, Micheael. Thank you, Sarah. I really thank you for this great discussion, for this going deeper in what UAP Czech is and what your efforts, Micheael, have been. Thank you again. And we will support you in any way we can to gather things and people around you. We want to close with the usual question that we pose to every people that come to the Unmistakable podcast. Seems simple, but could be a tough question. This time I will start with Micheael. What was unmistakable to you? I mean, which was the moment in which you said, okay, I have to really go into this topic because what I read, what I experienced, what I saw, what I don't know what, changed your perspective. What did change your perspective in this topic?
Wow, great question. I think it is completely bound to my personality. I never had such a switch in my mind because I was, I think, just a very broad opinion and point of view. I was born in South Africa, and when I was young, I was with my parents on a boat, and I went in many countries during many years. So I went to Polynesia, live here, in a place of the world where you are very far from the modern world, in a way. So, like an anthropologist in some way, because time to time I come back to France and to observe the difference. And I was always outside, in a way, of the real people in a place, like an observer, which was trying to connect the different reality of these different groups of people. And the question of the UAP or extraterrestrial beings was always there for me, because it's for me an anthropological question, of course. So it's well, I was also interested with question about what could be the future of humanity and how we can assess or guess what will be the future. And it's why also I'm working on a book about the theory of contact, how we can create a contact between different people on different civilization, and of course, extraterrestrial civilization at the end. So it was a very hard question, and always here in my mind. And to finish, I never did an observation. So I have strange dreams in my nights, but never had an observation, with two aspects very important for me: the scientific aspect on one side, on the humanities on the other side. So the philosophy of the life, on how we can accept the unacceptable in a way, the strangeness of the reality. So trying to connect all these aspects.
Thank you. Sarah, what was unmistakable to you?
Well, I actually faced the phenomenon when I was a child with my brother. That was a start, but I thought it was my own imagination, because, you know, when you're a child, you have lots of imagination, and I just left it on the side. And then I think it's, I've been traveling all around the world as well. And I've been to Polynesia as well, talking about that. And, you know, hearing lots of different people talking about this subject in South America, in Polynesia, in Egypt as well. And, you know, you start to think, oh, maybe I haven't dreamt. Maybe, you know, what I've seen when I was a kid was perhaps true and strange. I need to know a bit more about it. And then in 2003, I had a close encounter with my best friend on the top of a mountain. I have said that this, what happened, I did say it in different interviews already, so I'm not going to go back to it, but yes. And that moment, that changed everything. Then I decided, hang on a minute, what are those objects? What are those phenomena? How could that be possible? And then I started to investigate. And, you know, when you start to investigate, you start to meet all sorts of different people with all sorts of different beliefs and everything. And then I decided to stay neutral and do not have any beliefs. You can have your own theory, you can have your own hypothesis, I could say, but you have to stay focused on fact. I think that it's more, you can get more information, and then you don't have all the beliefs involved and everything, and then you get confused and you don't know. And, you know, so yes. And then step by step, meeting different peoples and different point of view and different perceptions on the subject, and then brings me to Echo event and then to UAP check.
Thank you, Sarah. And thank you, Michael. Really great conversation. And I hope to see you soon. Thank you so much for this episode of Unmistakable.
Thank you very much.
Thanks to you.
Bye.
Sure.